Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for February 17, 7:01 p.m. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Ready? Begin. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our regular council meeting for February 17, 7:01 p.m. Can we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? If we can all please remain standing for a moment of silence for our first responders and military members, please. Thank you. May be seated. Roll call.
Roll call, Councilmember Ross,
Present.
Councilmember Paul,
Present.
Councilmember Wallace,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Semra,
Present.
Mayor Moran.
Present.
For the record, all council members and mayor are in attendance.
Thank you. Closed session announcements.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The City Council met in closed session to discuss items 6 and 7 on this evening's closed session agenda. No reportable action was taken for those items. The City Council also met regarding item number 8, which was a walk-on item pursuant to Government Code Sections 54954.2, Subdivision B2, after having made the requisite findings and the 2/3 majority vote requirement to discuss real property negotiations under Government Code Section 54956.8 regarding an unassigned address for the southwest quadrant of Winton Parkway and B Street with an APN of 022-010-007. The City Council authorized the city manager to issue an offer for a purchase of a portion of the subject property. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Council, are there any changes to the agenda at this time? Seeing none, moving forward. Next, we have citizen comments. Is there any citizen comments on the phone for any items on the agenda at 7:02? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber, is there any citizen comments in the chamber? Seeing none, closing the citizen comments at 7:02. Next, we have announcements and reports. Any city staff announcements and reports at this time?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Miguel Galvez, Contract City Planner. I have 2 items I would like to report on. Number 1 is actions taken at the last Planning Commission meeting, which was held February 10th, 2026. There were 3 items on the agenda. One item actually was a series of items. It had to do with the housing element. The Planning Commission continued the housing element update to a date that's undefined, undetermined at this point. Staff will be bringing an item to the City Council to talk about a strategy to meet our housing inventory, our housing sites inventory. So we'll be bringing that to the council and get your direction. 2 other items on the Planning Commission agenda. The Planning Commission approved the site plan design review application for a religious school at 2765 Peach Avenue at the Sikh Temple. So that was approved. There was some neighborhood oppositions from the farmers that own property to the east. They have till this Friday, they're interested in appealing that to the City Council. The other item was a parcel map application which included an exception to the subdivision ordinance. Any exceptions to that are required to be considered by the Planning Commission and a recommendation for City Council. So that item will be coming to you. Again, it's a parcel map to divide one parcel into 2 parcels, and each parcel would be developed with a single-family home and an accessory dwelling unit. The other item I want to report on was that city staff did receive Correspondence from a property owner. The property owner is interested in requesting the council to consider including their property as part of the general plan update. Their property, this is the Gallo properties west of Robin Avenue. And so they submitted correspondence, and staff will be bringing an item up to the city council at a future meeting to seek direction or guidance and perhaps deliberation on how to handle that request. That concludes my report. I'm happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Miguel. Before I ask council if they have any questions, can you provide a little bit more context? I was present at the Planning Commission meeting, and there was also, you mentioned some concerns in regards to the item for the site review that was approved by the Planning Commission in regards to the
Sunday school.
Sunday school, yes. Can you provide a little context on what their concerns were?
Sure, absolutely. I would be happy to do so. When it came to the public hearing, we did not hear any comments from the residents to the north or to the west, which are single-family residents. We did receive 2 comments from 2 individual farmers that live east of the site, and their main concern basically had to do with the ability to spray. They were concerned that with the site adding a new land use being a school, it's not a school in the traditional sense like a public school or parochial school. It's more of a religious school that only operates like 2 hours. Nevertheless, they were concerned that having that designation will impose additional requirements on the farming community. They own property to the east, and they would have to provide notification and limit how they can, when and where they can apply herbicides, pesticides, those type of things. And so those issues were brought up. I know we also had a representative from the Farm Bureau that was here. They didn't take a position, but they were here to kind of hear about it. At the end, the Planning Commission recommended approval. Not recommended, but they approved the site plan design review. Staff did suggest a couple conditions. One is installation of landscaping, increased coordination, communication between the farmers and the church to kind of talk about when is the appropriate time. So whenever the city is growing, when we reach out into the perimeter of the city, there's always conflicts between urban uses and agriculture uses, and we're going to be looking at that a little more closely as part of the general plan update. But basically, that was a concern, being able to apply that and not put people in harm's way, but also respecting the implications or the impacts on the farming community and their operations.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions? Thank you, Miguel.
You're welcome.
Is there any additional, I see Public Works coming up.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and residents of Livingston. Just wanted to give a quick update on the MID Underground Canal project that's going on here in town. So this is a quick update from this past Friday. TBS crews were removing the sandbags from the east air vent manholes. Crew scheduled to place concrete on the west air vent manhole today at 1 p.m. MID inspect the structure prior to concrete placement. Also spoke to MID engineers late Friday. They stated that the underground canal was watertight and they could accept water from our storm station. So just wanted to give you a quick update on what's going on with that project. And they're moving forward, and now with the rain, they kind of slowed down a little bit. So just wanted to give you a little heads up.
Just real quick, I know that I asked earlier, Anthony, about, can you give us an update more or less how the rain has affected or not certain areas of the community?
So yes,
And-
we've
and-
had
Yeah.
We've had the area where the donut shop's at that has had a little bit of water there. Our pump station's working as designed, continuously moving the water, but the water's coming out at such a quick rate where it's having trouble to keep up. We did have our storm stations off for a while due to the MID canal, but as soon as we found out Friday that it was watertight, then we were okay to pump into that underground canal. So other areas we're looking at is storm basins right next to Frederick Roden Park. That one we're keeping an eye on, and we also have a pump there pumping into the MID Canal on that end of the park there. And all the other ones are trying to catch up. Luckily that we have a little bit of break in between, and we'll see how it goes. We'll just pray for the best.
Do we foresee any issues where residents might have a need for sandbags or anything like that?
Yes, we do have sandbags. There has been a couple residents that have came down for sandbags, and they're available there at the Public Works Courtyard at 2238 Walnut Avenue here in Livingston.
And then also during the weekend when it's closed, can they still pick up the sandbags at the PD?
I want to say that they were available at the PD.
Yeah, okay, so they can pick up the sandbags at PD and then go.
Fill them up
And-
at the
and fill
Public
them up
Works
at the-
Courtyard,
Got it.
correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Council, any questions? Thank you.
Okay.
Any other city staff announcements and reports? No? Got it. City manager announcements and reports?
Yes, Mr. Mayor and council and public. A few things. One, just wanted to let you guys know that we've been working with the county as it relates to the pavement condition index. As you might know, we have our own pavement management system, so we keep track of the conditions of our road. And so there's some funding through MCAG, and so we're working with the county. And the goal here is to, look at, evaluate and look at the different road conditions that allow us to, program funding and address the specific needs for the individual roads. So that report was actually completed and submitted over to the county. The other thing I wanted to highlight is we have our first scheduled utility rate stakeholders committee meeting coming up on March 4th. We've had some takers already. We still need two at-large individuals from the community. We have an application process, and we would like to bring, all of those individuals to be seated on the March 3rd meeting of the council. And we can continue to move forward even if we don't have, all three citizen oversight folks, but we would, of course, like to have that. So if anybody's interested in participating in this, would be great. I anticipate less than 10 meetings. And again, this is as part of going over the rates and the Prop 218 hearing process. And so we plan on having a few workshops, and we would very much appreciate your participation and time on this. The other one that's still open, and we've been doing advertising and trying to get folks to sign up, and it's been Mr. Bates and I think one more person, and that's the Measure L Committee. That's a great learning opportunity. And again, this is for that 1 half-cent sales tax that the community passed for our own fire and police and fire. And lastly, it's our turn to host the city-county dinner in April, so the date is April 23rd. I've asked all my department heads to be there, and anybody else that would like to participate, of course, you're invited, Mr. Bates, and anybody else. We're going to have it at the Swan Building, social hour between 5:30 and 6:30. Our theme is Arts from the Heart. We're planning to have some little surprises there to showcase our community and have some good food and a little bit of entertainment. So again, April 23rd. And that concludes my report, unless you have any questions for me.
Mr. Ramirez, can you provide, or can you give us more or less a list of when you say rates, just a little bit of context?
Oh, more context? Yeah.
please.
So when we talk about rates, every 5 years, we go through a process where we start to evaluate water, sewer, and garbage. And the city's only looks to collect only what it costs to basically provide those 3 services. So we hire a consultant. In this case, it was Wilden Financial Services this time around. And then we go through this whole process of looking at, everything holistically. And then there's a cost associated with providing, these upgrades and these improvements and future upgrades within that framework of 5 years. So we're going to start looking at what the rates will start to look like and each year moving forward for the next 5 years. So that's what we're going to start to tackle under the Utilities Rate Stakeholders Committee. And then that committee will then recommend to council, and then we'll have a series of workshops educating the community on that. And then the council will basically take action to then implement the rates, hopefully by July.
So, in this analysis, in this process, there will be no analysis in regards to planning and some of the other departments' fees when it, just,
No, this is just for water, sewer, and garbage.
perfect, thank you. Council, any questions? Next, we have a conflict of interest declaration. Members of the city council will declare an actual or apparent conflict of interest before discussions or decisions about any matters in which they or anyone with whom they have a close personal relationship could directly or indirectly benefit, or with such a benefit be perceived. Council, are there any conflict of interest declarations? Seeing none, moving forward, consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda calendar are considered routine or non-controversial and will be enacted by one vote unless separate action is required by a member of the public, city manager, or city council member. Council, are there any questions or considerations for the consent agenda items?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just a quick potential amendment to a word on the resolution, a grammatical correction. Item 7, line 4 of the resolution, this is on page 52 of our staff report. I would propose that we change the word supplement to supplemental. It's in regards to the appropriations that will be made for this item.
Council, any questions on that? Anything else? So at this, before, let me go out for public comment. Is there any, so at 7:17, I'm going out for citizen comments in regards to the consent agenda items. Is there anyone on the phone with any questions in regards to the consent agenda? Coming back to the chamber, 7:17. Any questions in the chamber? Seeing none, closing the citizen comments at 7:17. At this time, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion we approve the consent calendar with the correction of the word proposed by Councilmember Upo.
So we have a motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Summer. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Roth. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Roth?
Yes.
Councilmember Upal?
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Yes.
Mayor Moran?
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Next, we have discussion and potential action items. Item number 8, resolution approving the traffic engineering evaluation and proposed modifications for stop signs on Hammond Avenue and direct Public Works staff to install stop signs improvement.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, members of the community. Our office, Mario Gouveia, City Engineer, our office prepared the technical memo that's in your packet, evaluating the feasibility of installing stop signs on Campbell at the Hammond, actually they're on Hammond at the Campbell intersection. So this memorandum followed the industry standards in terms of preparing and evaluating these installations, and in terms of criteria and approach, main things are speed and traffic counts and accident data, general plan circulation, and what the MUTCD, Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, basically the guidance from the MUTCD. So as we know, the installation was requested to be expedited by the council. So some of the data like speed survey and traffic counts was not available. We were able to obtain traffic accident data from a couple of sources. One, it's TIMS, which is a transportation injury mapping system. It's out of UC Berkeley, and also from the police department. And there was a fair amount. These never match, and they're complementary. Some of them overlap. So there was a fair number of accidents. As I mentioned, speed and traffic count is not available. It would have taken a lot longer to get that. So, and we look at the road classification, which both of these are arterials, which means they have higher volume of traffic. We look at precedents of similar installations. You actually have two of them, and they're both on Main and Campbell, which is right not far from there, and then Main and Peach on the south side of the city. So there's a couple of precedents already with these installations. In terms of the criteria and what we look for to justify installing these devices, there's a couple of the criteria that were actually met, and you only need to actually meet one. One of it is if permanent traffic signals are warranted at this location, which obviously they are because there's one in design at this point. And then if more than 5 accidents occurred in a period of 12 months, then you could justify this installation as an interim installation. So that's what the recommendation is here in this technical memo. And it also includes a drawing that shows the changes. It is our understanding that city staff would be in making those changes and installing the stop signs. 2 of the stop signs will be solar, with they're lit. The other 2 are not.
Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
No, are you sure? Thank you. Just a quick question for you or for Anthony and Company. If approved, when will these stop signs get installed?
We wouldn't be able to do any of the striping work until after this rain. Until we're done with this raining, these storms we're receiving. They could do some of the early work and concrete in the receivers for the poles and get that out of the way, because that takes about a day or 2 to do, because you got to let the concrete set. But we'd have to wait for good weather.
You have the signs already, stop signs?
Yep, yeah, we have the stop signs in stock, and there's 2 36-inch solar stoplights and 2 36-inch regular.
Yeah, that's the #1 complaint we get, and the way when I approach it, I just close my eyes and I gun it. No, I don't, but it's, you got to be careful out there, yeah. Thank you.
Council, any other questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, go ahead.
first things first, would like to thank staff for expediting this item. I did request that we move forward on it as soon as we could, and it was brought in pretty good time to that end. Did get a lot of feedback on this from folks in the community. I would say generally supportive. Do have concerns about congestion, which we know will be there if we approve the stop sign, but I do feel like, just given the data that was presented by engineering just now and as listed in the staff report, This is going to be a good priority safety measure at that intersection. There were some frustrations shared by folks in the community, and Mr. Gouveia, I hope you had the chance to read these in the email. I did want to ask these at the dais.
Sure.
Folks were frustrated with the fact that we didn't install these on our own yet. Hey, city, you knew that there was development coming in this area. You should have put stoplights up yourself. So can we get a little bit into the nuances of what that process looks like? And we can start with what is like the estimated cost of installing a four-way stoplight?
Right. I'll start with the cost, if that's okay. There's a project at the intersection, which we actually brought to council not long ago. The cost for the improvement at the intersection is about $2.5 million. The traffic signals themselves would probably be around 700, give or take.
So let me provide a little bit of back story and context, and then you can take it from there. So this particular, you're absolutely right, and the public is correct. You know, there was some planning that was done for this specific area, and this basically predates Quickway. It was ARCO.
Yes.
So when ARCO was actually being looked at and being approved, staff at that time basically said, you know what, we don't want what happened, you know, traffic congestion and all these different issues to happen. And so it's important that we try to get ahead of these particular projects, because there was also another project that was proposed on the other side of the street, on the other quadrant, besides Quickway and ARCO. So and of course, we don't collect any of the funds until all the projects are moving forward and get approved, and then we collect money. So the city was proactive and creative, excuse me, and so we actually asked MCAG to upfront some funding, and if I remember correctly, it was 1.5 million, or was it 1 million?
I think it was 1 million.
1 million,
And
yeah.
I have some timelines here that probably will provide some context on
Okay, go ahead.
when it started and why it's not built now. And, I mean, those are all really good points that ideally you would have these installations done before these developments are complete. I mean, I think we all understand that. The improvements at this intersection, including the signal, they were identified by the city in 2019, so about going on 7 years. And the city looked at regional Measure V for funding, and it did obtain funding at the end of 2020. Traffic studies and preliminary design, all that, communications with Caltrans and approvals from Caltrans, or consensus from Caltrans, started in 2020, 2021. The city stopped all work in April of 2022, and that was not restarted until May of 2025. So there's over a 3-year gap there with everything stalled. Having said that, if that hadn't happened, those signals would be up now.
And to what extent, and this is more of a general question, this can depend on the city, do these installations and these costs get passed on to the private developers in the area?
Yes, the developers are assigned their fair share of those improvements. So they don't pay for the whole thing, is however much you're going to, if you have a lot of traffic, there's traffic studies that are done, and based on those, that's how you establish what's the fair share for each of the, like ARCO and Moonglow, all of those.
Thank you. No further questions.
Quick question. When we talk about fair share, is that based on the numbers that were worked on, you know, back in 2020 or so, or numbers that are going to be like now that, you know, probably they're going to be way different?
Yeah, it's based, and Noah, if you want to jump in here on that, I don't, but they are based on when the project starts. And I don't know if there's projections for traffic volumes later on. Did you get the question? Yeah. Okay. Can you answer it, or you just? Okay.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, council members. Noe Martinez, Office of the City Engineer. And to try and answer the question, yeah, when the project was first entitled and reviewed, at that time, there was a requirement for the applicant to do a traffic study. And that traffic study basically identified a percentage of how much or how much that project would pay for in terms of cost for the traffic signal. So the applicants were then required to prepare estimates, but it was on whatever current dollar that was, and from that estimate, that's when the amounts were determined.
So it's based on the current traffic volume at that time, not projected traffic. And that's
So-
industry standard.
So, yeah, so basically because the prices or the cost
They
will
keep going
change.
up. Yep.
And then, so just to make sure that I understood it correctly, they will pay their share. Let's say that the cost was forecast to be, I don't know, $1 million. And the numbers that were figure out that they were gonna pay was, I don't know, 500,000. So then who pays the other 500? The city, correct?
Several, probably other developments, the city, it's a variety, depends on
Okay.
the situation.
So now, since probably, if it was $1 million back in 2020, let's just use a number, I don't, hypothetical number.
It'll be 2 million now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 million, and then that developer in particular, based on the numbers from 2020, will still continue to pay 500,000. And then if somebody else comes on board,
If somebody comes in the future for another development, then their contribution will be based on the fair share of the value of those improvements at the time the project is entitled.
at that time. And then if not, like right now, let's say this, if we forecast that those signals are gonna be installed in a year and no other projects come on board, then they're only responsible for 500,000, but the city is responsible for 1.5.
Yeah, yes.
And to keep in mind that the project right now, as it is fully funded with Measure B, so.
Yeah, this is a regional Measure V project, and the scope has been expanded to do some work along Hammond all the way to Walnut and to synchronize those signals. So it'll be a really nice, that's the flip side of waiting 3 years. Now you do get a better project.
Would it be any different if the project, it's on hold based on the decision of the project developer?
If the project is on hold?
Yeah,
based
like-
on- Like if the
It's not-
project doesn't move forward?
Yeah,
They're still on the hook for whatever their
just
contribution was.
just their share that was agreed
Correct.
on, but not,
Their share.
yeah, not a difference, even if they said, well, I don't want to build until
Well,
5 years later.
All those numbers are established at the time of entitlement, so we'll say the 500,000 that we were discussing. It doesn't matter if it costs $5 million now, they're only gonna be required to pay the 500,000.
Got it, thank you. Council, any other questions? Thanks.
Sure.
So I think I still have to go out for public comment. So at this time, 7:33, is there any questions or comments? Anyone on the phone?
Yes, hello?
Yes, can you state your name for the record, please?
Yes, Pamela Temez. Since we're talking about traffic, I wanted to ask a really quick question in regards to the Rexplex and the D Street corridor. Is there going to be a study on controlling the speed of traffic? I have a big concern. We live across from the Rexplex, and there's going to be once that Rexplex is completed and built, there's going to be many children
Ma'am?
coming up and down the streets on skateboards, bicycles.
Excuse,
And
ma'am?
right, Yes?
Can you hear me? So right
Yes.
now, is there a question related to this item right now? I know that is related to traffic, but we are not allowed to talk about anything other than the item we're,
Okay.
yes.
All right.
But if we don't get a chance to address your question, can you please make sure that you reach out to one of us or the city manager to assist you with some response to your question?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I thought this was about traffic in town, and I thought that's why I got on.
No, that's okay. We gotta stay within the boundary of
Okay.
that intersection that we're talking about right now.
But you
Okay, I'll
can,
write a
this is
letter.
Jose, the city manager. Please reach out to my office, and we're happy to address your concerns. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or questions in regards to this item, specifically anyone on the phone? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber. Is there anyone in the chamber with questions in regards to this item? Seeing none, closing the citizen comments at 7:35, bringing it back to the dais. Is there any other questions, comments, motions?
Mr. Mayor, I make the motion that we approve the resolution approving the traffic engineering evaluation proposed modification for stop signs on Hammond Avenue and directing Public Works staff to install these stop sign improvements.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Summer. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Councilmember Roth. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Paul,
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Summer,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Next, we have item number 9, general discussion on usage of city attorney's office time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The city attorney's office received a request for an agenda item to be brought. As set forth in the staff report, there's a general description of the city attorney's office and our responsibilities. And at this time, the city attorney's office would request direction from the city council regarding how individual council members may reach out and request for our assistance, and any other direction that you'd like to provide at this time.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I did request this item. I would like to start by addressing the concern raised by Councilmember Roth during the October 21st council meeting as it relates to time spent talking to the city attorney's office. And then as the city attorney just mentioned, there's potential policy direction that can be provided for this item, and I'll leave it up to council to move on that as they please and have discussion on that as they please. But I will address the concern first. This is an invoice from May of 2025, several months back, that was raised during the October 21st, 2025 council meeting related to what was billed as 3.9 hours of conversation between myself and our city attorney's office, costing around $1,100. So I'll just start by saying I'd like to be clear about the fact that I have never had a 4-hour conversation with our attorneys or for any of our staff members for that matter, and I'm sure that they're all glad that that's the case, and there's thankful for that. In speaking with the city attorney's office before the meeting, there's nuances around our billings, potential issues with waivers, and so we have to be careful about how we discuss these types of items. If council would like to have a more nuanced discussion and would like to have that direction, I'm happy to explore that and work with the city attorney's office to move in that direction at a later time. City attorney, I don't know if there's anything that you are planning on jumping in with right now, but
just a reminder to the council that the primary objective of the item is to discuss policy matters and not get into matters that involve the attorney-client privilege and billing information, which is also protected by that privilege.
Definitely. Thank you for that comment. And I'm happy to have that conversation with the council and to see what you have to say. I just would like to make a quick comment. I was shocked to hear this concern. I'm always for us being mindful of our costs, especially as it relates to one of our more expensive services. But, you know, there was silence prior to this on the $160,000 budget deficit that existed in the city before I came in. There was silence on the $50,000 a month that we were bleeding in administrative fees prior to me coming in. And those costs are orders of magnitude greater than what this perceived cost was. And the only ask that I'm going to make of Councilmember Roth and the rest of the council for that matter is to have a principled stance when making these types of concerns and applying them in all cases. And so if there's nuance at a policy level that you'd like to discuss as it relates to the city attorney's office, I'm more than happy to have that conversation now.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, go ahead.
The reason I asked that question is, you know, typically when I've looked at these invoices before, I've never seen, 3.9 hours or what have you on, conversations with an attorney. So, it was concerning at the time, $1,100 of a taxpayer's money. So, it may be, I'm just going to stick with that. It just concerned me, the 3.9 hours. So that's why I asked the question. So you're stating that you did not talk to the attorney for 3.9 hours?
No, and again, there's nuances that exist there where we would delve into privilege. So if we would like to move in a direction where we could have a more nuanced discussion about that, I'm happy to move with you guys on that, but there is a process there, and I want to make sure that we're mindful of that to go there.
Okay, so thank you for that. So that means that the verbiage in the city attorney's billing is wrong then, because it made it look like you were on for 3.9 hours. That's the whole reason for this conversation.
There's nuances there. That's all I can say, and I think we can open that can of worms if we'd like to, but it'd have to be at a later date.
Council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Question for legal. Now, just to make sure we clarified, I'm trying to be careful of the way you worded it, okay? I gotta make sure that we do this the right way. If I call the attorney with a question, is every other council member has access to that information as well? So if I call you and say, can you please tell me about, and this is hypothetical, doesn't exist, okay? About creating alien ships or something, whatever, I don't know, I'm just trying to make something that's so. Now, if you give me advice or you give me information, does everybody else have the same information, or is that just subject between council member and the attorney, or is that information available to all council members?
Thank you for the question, Vice Mayor. So again, we're speaking in hypotheticals and generalities.
I'm not former President Obama. I'm not talking about alien life existing here. So it's completely hypothetical, okay?
Yes, so, and I do want to be clear that, so legal professionals, we bill our time in increments of 0.1, so every 6 minutes, so time billed, and we're supposed to track our time contemporaneously, so we will track time spent on a given matter. To answer your question of what happens when an individual council member approaches legal for a given question like this alien ask, depending on, so if it's a broader question like that, that might be brought back to the balance of the council, that is research that the entire council would have access to. Now, sometimes when it comes to a conflict of interest or a sensitive subject, that might be a more limited issue, but generally, yes, if a member of the council asks for legal research on an issue affecting the city, then another member might be able to ask for that.
Okay, then, and I'm trying to be careful, I don't know if we need to take this closed session at the next meeting or one of the meetings coming up. In reference to that one item, what, I actually saw the invoice after it was brought up. 3.9 hours, and I'm trying to be careful, but it was the subject of what the call was about, according to the invoice. And I don't know. That it troubles me is how can one official know this, but not have others have the same information? So,
So I have not seen this bill, and this does predate me by a bit, and my suggestion at this point would be to address the policy issues. So for example, if the city council this evening would like to set a rule to bind themselves and bind to others, that's something that the city council can consider.
okay, and to me, another thing, and before we go to setting policy, and I think we need to allow, as long as all five of us understand we by the same rule, it makes it easy for everybody, is, and again, if I call you and say I need advice, we used to have where a council member calling used to have their name on that particular time call, say, Mayor, I'm not gonna use myself, and Mayor Pro Tem called. It's no longer being done. Is there a reason why the name of the person, it just says council member, but doesn't state who?
And so now we're getting into the contents of billing entries, which are privileged information. So I would
So a
ask the
individual
balance of the
council member
council.
calling, their name can't be attached to who requested that information or who made that call?
So again, I'll repeat that we are now entering discussions of the contents of narratives, and I would advise the council to focus on the policy issues rather than the contents of billing entries.
So then how do we address that portion of it? Because if I call, I want my fellow council members to know that I made a call. So we used to have invoices where I called, it says so-and-so called. It's no longer there. Is there a reason that policy changed? Or is there a reason that billing changed?
Again, we're talking about the contents of billing entries.
Could that be a question that, or something that could be addressed one-on-one and then without having,
Yeah, I'm trying to, and I guess that probably part of the policy, I'm not sure how we're gonna do this, is if I call, I want my fellow council members to know that I called. And how do we state that somebody calling person, other council members that, so otherwise we never know who's calling, who's doing this.
I think you can propose that, but I will not be discussing billing entries in the context of this agenda item in open session.
All right, I will also make sure that I'd like to bring that into that and the particular invoice into the closed session at a later date where we can have conversation.
From what I understand, that could be a recommendation, and then to see if it falls
Yeah.
under the
Yes,
closed session.
I'm trying very careful not
Yeah,
to
yeah.
follow you,
Yeah, so,
and finally doing a very lousy job, but I'm trying.
so, when I was reviewing this item and the report and the recommendations, I honestly don't see, well, I guess it doesn't hurt to have a policy in place, written now specifically with descriptions and steps and guidelines and, but we have to be very careful in regards to if the goal is to restrict any council member from contacting our only two direct staff members, that being whether it's the city manager or the city attorney, then even if it's a policy that is approved by the majority, I would want to be careful to make sure that it's not restricting anybody that has been elected to have or be able to contact, legal or city manager when there's questions. Because a lot of those questions, and then I can only speak for myself. I heard about, whether or not council members are informed, educated, or on their agenda. Sometimes there's history in the past or so on, but whether or not we are well versed on what's on the agenda. But part of that process, sometimes there's questions that come up, and thinking about my process is, this was a very simple agenda, it's on, very tiny agenda, and it only took me, roughly maybe like 5 hours, 6 hours, to really go through it and do some search and blah, 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 and all of that, make some phone calls, but sometimes in the process, I have to send out a text or an email or a call to legal to get a clarification on my interpretation of the agenda item or specific questions and so on, so that by Tuesday, when I come here, I have most of my answers. And yes, probably in my time sitting here on the dais, a little bit over 5 years, I have asked a lot of questions, probably more questions that most of the council members within the last 5 years. But even though I already have the answers to those legal questions, I still ask those questions, and I still ask for those questions to be answered on the record, but not for me no more, because I already know the answer, but primarily to inform the people in the community that are not here, or the people that are here, or people in the community that are going to either be watching this meeting live or later, during the week and so on. So, I just want to council to really think about, we have to be careful, because then if not, then, because let me just give a scenario. There could be a, council member number 6, or number 7, just to be hypothetical, and say, well, I never have to call the city attorney. I don't need to spend, whatever, 2 hours in a month, calling the city attorney. Well, then, I'm sorry that you're not doing your job, because, but then again, that's also your responsibility. If you don't have no questions, then that means you're informed, educated, and you're the expert, but someone like myself, maybe I'm not the expert, maybe I'm not educated, and if I have questions, I want to make sure that they're answered to the best, or, to my satisfaction, because when I come, when it's Tuesday and I want to come here, I want to be able to make sure that I make the well-informed and best possible decision based on the information that I have. And then again, we cannot expect, even though people writing these reports, they're experts and they have a lot of background information, but we're all human, and sometimes not everything is on here, So we have to be mindful of that as well. But anyways, honestly, from my perspective, right now, based on the report, based of the questions that I asked, I don't see a need for guidelines, because I think they have worked out pretty well. But then again, if there is guidelines approved by the majority, then, we have to just make sure that we're careful of not restricting the work of any future council member sitting here on the dais.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. First of all, in no way, at least my side, my point, is that any council member should be restricted in getting legal advice. In fact, I rather urge council members to call even when there's the slightest doubt or question or not completely clear. I'd rather have somebody call and get a clear answer than to take an action and then regret it later. It's better to get that cleared up to begin with. So what I still like to do is, obviously, talking in code here doesn't really work because there's a lot of things. I would like to suggest that we have a closed session on some of the questions that I'd like to ask directly. Is that legal, Mark? More direct questions that we're still keeping that attorney-client privilege and all that?
We can research a potential closed session agenda item.
Yeah, please. So I would like to hold off on this until I have my answers, or even calling Mark and saying, can you give me this more direct answer, I didn't think about it that way, but maybe I should have. So I'd like to do research to see how we can talk about this, please. Mr. Mayor, I'm asking, so we have, obviously everybody has to agree on it.
I think, also, I want to ask council if there's any questions, additional questions.
Yeah, of course.
So, and then we can come back with consideration to table, continue this item. Council, are there any other questions at this time before I go out for public comment?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Just one quick comment on it. Being military, it's always you follow chain of command. My initial thoughts when this came up on a proposal was 90% of your questions should be directed to the city manager. Unless your complaint is about a city manager, then of course you'd go direct to the city attorney. But otherwise, 90% should go to the city manager. If you don't like what he goes, then that would be your second alternative, is go to the city attorney. That's very general, very simple, and it covers everybody. That was just my thoughts on it.
Thank you. So at this time, 7:57, I will go out for public comment. Is there any questions or comments on the phone at this time? Hearing none, coming back to the chambers, is there any comments or questions in the chamber in regards to this item? Seeing none, closing the citizen comments at 7:57. Council, is there any additional questions, comments, recommendations? If there's no additional questions, I will entertain a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to continue this item for legal to research and see if he can have a closed session before we make the final decision.
So we have a motion on the floor to continue this item to a future date. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Have a second by Councilmember Roth. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Paul,
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Semra,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes,
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
thank you. Item number 10, discussion regarding use of electronic devices during city council meetings. I believe this is also an item for, Mr. Wallace?
My only on this electronic devices during city council members, I think all cell phones should be off and no communications on cell phones between members of the council up on the dais. That's, should be a no-mo. I think that's the way it probably is everywhere if you were to look. You shouldn't be I shouldn't be communicating with the vice mayor, shouldn't be communicating on my phone to you unless it's a closed session item, and then we're not out here for the public. But to me, it's kind of like the Brown Act. No, you shouldn't be talking to somebody that maybe you already talked to on your telephone. So other than that, the phones would be off. And if they need an emergency number to contact, there's always a number to call in. There's emergency at home. Monica will get it and tell whoever it is that's affected. They go outside and use their phone. That's just my opinion on it.
Okay, council, are there any questions?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
Mr. Wallace, to confirm, do you want the phones to be off entirely, or do you want the phones to only have the restriction to where we cannot communicate with each other on the dais?
Excuse me, I was thinking they'd be completely off, but as long as they're not used for communicating, but we wouldn't know that if you were texting or I was texting the Mayor Pro Tem or you texting you with something, because then there's two of us talking and we're up here on the dais, well, we're gonna be making a decision or something, and I could have texted you some information or something that the rest of the council did not know about. So I'd prefer the telephones not be on.
Council, any other questions? So I will go out for public comment on this item at 8:01. Is there any comments or questions on the phone? Is there a comment on this item? On the phone? Coming back to the chamber, is there any citizen comments or questions on this item in the chamber? Seeing none, closing the citizen comments at 8:01, bringing it back to the dais. Council, any questions, comments, recommendations?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I will agree with that, except for one thing. I mean, emergencies do happen. I agree with your action item here. We shouldn't be using our phones to text, but there are emergencies. I had one a couple months ago with my daughter, so I would prefer them to be on, but no use of them while we're on the dais. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
question for legal. Are electronic devices subject to public records request?
Yes, both city-issued phone, well, starting with city-issued devices, any city business conducted on those devices could create public records within the definition of the government code. And in addition to devices owned by the city, personal devices used, personal devices and accounts, if used to conduct city business, may also create records subject to disclosure.
So those devices it's not just subject to phones, but it's also subject to any electronic device, correct?
Yes, Vice Mayor. So the way that the staff report is drafted, it's much broader than phones. It addresses electronic devices more generally, which would include smartwatches, tablets, laptops, whatever else. But Councilman Wallace specifically mentioned the use of phones, and so did Councilman Roth.
Yeah, because if I take a laptop or something in a closed session, now that becomes a subject to public records request, correct? Because it doesn't matter where it is, anything electronic is subject to it.
So whether something constitutes a record would require additional analysis. There's issues such as actual possession, constructive possession, whether it falls under an exemption. So materials that might be created in closed session might be protected from a closed session privilege, attorney-client privilege, other things, but that's just a general answer to your question.
So if I have a laptop here and I take it in there, citizen says, I want all records for that day or something. How do we differentiate between closed session and this? Because if we handwrite a note here or there, it's pretty much subject to public disclosure and public request. So even our notes that we take are subject to.
Not necessarily. So there are exemptions for notes and other issues. Typically, what's disclosable are final records of the city, and again, the issue of notes that could divulge deliberative process information, which is privileged, again, attorney-client information, which is also privileged, so it would require further assessment. I can't say as a general matter that all of those types of documents would be subject to disclosure.
Okay,
Not.
we just got done with closed session earlier, and we're not allowed to disclose it. And the information we get, we turn it back to staff. If you look at some of the items that we had, everything we did, other than in our mind, has been given back to staff for our closed session items. If I write that onto a computer or bring it out, now are we violating something there by taking information that's confidential outside of that room?
Not necessarily. So the act of dissemination of closed session information is prohibited, but storing of notes, assuming it's securely stored, that in and of itself does not create a violation. And I think this might go into another agenda item about the potential designation of a closed session scribe. So I'll add that for your consideration as well.
Okay, thank you. But I do agree with Councilmember Roth that I don't know how we do this. I shouldn't be texting anybody, be it in here or out here, but I don't think we should be turning off the phones because our family members or whoever, or, they're not gonna know to call the council number, main line or whatever line. They're not gonna call in the public line. If there's an emergency, you need to be gotten hold of right away. So I would agree with you, Mr. Wallace, that we should set something of a prohibition of us texting each other and we shouldn't be doing that. But as far as turning the devices off and all that, I'm not sure if I'm quite ready to go that far.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would agree with the premise that we should not be communicating with each other, but I would like to keep the devices on for emergency situations or times where you just got to get in touch with someone real quick.
Yeah, you did.
All right, council, is there any other questions, comments?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I may?
Yes.
The recommendation to provide direction to staff, I don't think that's a proper recommendation because we can't direct staff to tell us to use our phones or to turn them off. That's entirely a council matter. So I don't know if, Mark, help me out on this. How do we?
Yes, Mr.
How do we word this to say that that we should not be texting each other or calling each other during meetings?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor. So to confirm, this item was requested without any policy directive, so that's why it's very broad, so that y'all could have this discussion and
Right.
together craft a policy that you'd like to adopt. So it sounds like at this point, you're looking for a policy for the city council to not use their cell phones to text each other during council meetings. Is that an accurate summary?
Mr. Mayor?
Telephones or their laptops back and forth for text messages between them there.
Okay, I'll let someone else talk if they want to. These phones and those laptops.
Can you speak to the mic, Mr. Wallace?
Yeah, I think it should be no texting unless it's back and forth from a phone or any electronic device between one or two or three of us up on the dais. That's, to me, would be a Brown Act, but that's just my opinion. So I think they should not be used to text.
If I may, so it is, well, from my limited knowledge about Brown Act, and I probably read it about once a month, it is my understanding that people on the dais, council members, should not be texting, communicating, and the only time that they are communicating, it should be on the mic, open, and it should be recorded. So I am assuming, based on the conversation and the comments and the recommendations, is that there has been a concern that members of the council have been texting during council meetings. What I would suggest, if that is a concern, that you should make that an official concern and then do a PRA request to confirm or not that actually happened, because if that is a concern, that should be reported, because that would be a Brown Act violation from my perspective.
Not saying. Mr. Mayor, I don't know whether it has officially happened or not. I just want to make sure it does not happen.
Got it. Thank you for clarifying.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I noticed, we all seen this. There, it says staff research policies by other jurisdictions found the following: that city of Stockton council members from using electronic devices during public meeting other than to access agenda material, and cities issue laptops or tablet. However, the use of electronic devices is entirely prohibited in closed session. Should a council member need to respond to urgent personal matter? So I think, just to address everybody's concern, Stockton has a good policy, and I think we should look into that.
There's a lot going on in Stockton, to say the least. But,
I understand, but let's not, you know. So I kind of think that the Stockton policy is probably pretty good. Maybe we should look into adopting that.
So, and then again, I think I heard a couple of things here. One, because if we talk about electronic devices in general, or electronic communication devices in general, it's pretty broad, but it could be good. But I also heard cell phones and also heard laptops. I'm assuming, and then I'm going to be, and I think we need to be clear and be specific. If the concern is that laptops are being used or electronic devices in closed session or during open session, that should be expressed so that we can figure out how to solve that specific item. Because otherwise, if we work on something that is just too broad and it's too general, then we're not going to address the concern, because it's just too broad, And then something that is too broad, is not specific, it could be open to interpretation depending on who's reading it. I mean, just my experience from what I've seen, I think we need to be specific. If it's this, and that, then we need to line it out, cell phones, this and that. Otherwise, we're going to come back, or some other council is going to come back again in a year, 2 years with the same concern, and because it's just too broad. It's just my observation. Council, is there any other questions, comments, direction?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I like the consensus that we came to earlier as it relates to no intercommunication on electronic devices. So I would motion well, we're going to have an item coming up where we may end up in a place where we're discussing a broader council protocols and procedures document. This may tie into that as well. So something to consider if we move into that direction. But if we're gonna set any policy on this, I would motion that that policy prohibit council members from communicating with each other with electronic devices while in public meetings, and leave it at that.
I would like to expand that to consider all electronic devices enclosed or an open session unless it's a city-issued electronic device.
Council, any other comments, questions, additions? So what I'm hearing is it would be a policy to prohibit any type of communication between council members through electronic devices while in closed session or regular session, but can only use a CD, not used, a CD provided device Is that it? That's what I heard.
Yeah, but I also think we should prohibit all electronic devices being used in closed session.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I would ask the Mayor Pro Tem to elaborate on the concerns with that last point.
To me, I think we should prohibit all electronic recording devices, be it text portion or audio, to be carried into a closed session, and no communication between council members at all, electronically.
To be carried into the room, so you would want the
To be
devices-
used in closed session, no private electronic devices in closed session to be used.
So city-used devices would be okay? I mean, city-owned devices would be okay?
No, in closed session, no electronic devices.
Yeah, and what is the concern with that?
Because the concern is, with this day and age, the information can get out. I cannot guarantee that my device cannot get hacked. There's concerns this day and age. I can quickly do some cheap stuff out there. I can probably hack anybody's phone or computer in an instant. So I would prohibit all electronic devices, computers, phones from being used other than emergency call that you may get from your family in closed session.
Mr. Mayor, if it's okay, I would like to ask some questions.
Yes.
First one being, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, to your knowledge, have there been any leaks of information as a result of electronic devices in closed session?
But like you said, I'm sure Stockton adopted this for whatever reason. So I wouldn't want for us to have a reason to prohibit it later. It's better to do it now.
So the answer to that is no, but you are looking to take a preventative measure. The next question that I would ask is, our city devices, which have our city emails, whether or not they're in closed session rooms, have stuff that's on the cloud. So can that same cloud not get hacked at a time that a council meeting isn't taking place when there's nothing going on related to a meeting?
You're absolutely correct. However, I would imagine that city's IT department has preventive measures against that. There is records, there's retention policies, there's all kinds of policies and I'm sure they have other things that they provide as far as security for that. So I can't guarantee how secure my private phone is, or if I had a laptop, my own private device, here or inside, I can't say what level of defense or security measures it has. I can't vouch for that. Nobody can. So
So city-owned devices then, which are covered by the city's IT, should be okay, based on your own comments.
I still think, personally, I don't think we should have any devices in closed session, period. Because we're given information, and all these years, we managed to get through without having to record anything. And I don't think, I mean, we can research to see what other cities do as far as electronic devices in closed session or anywhere, but I think we're opening up a can of worms by having confidential information leave that room out here.
That information leaves in your brain. So whether or not it's on a device, any of us are more than welcome to go speak what we just heard. Again, there's no record of this taking place. And I actually would like to add the fact that there's allegations of leaks going back several years prior to my time on council where there was no action taken to address, whether that was in relation to electronic devices or any other matter. Since I got brought onto council early last year, we had a discussion related to these same potential violations, and there was no substantive action taken at that time either. Now, since then, as far as I'm aware, there haven't been any major concerns, nor have we had issues specifically with devices as it relates to leaks. And we can pretend that this is about preventative measures, but anybody can take a simple look at the dais and see what devices are out here, and I am the only member of the council that is currently using an electronic device, which is a city-owned device, and consistently uses an electronic device, a city-owned device, to take notes. So if folks are afraid of the things that I'm writing, which is just the business that we're conducting, if we're afraid of our own business, if we can't justify our own actions, and if we're worried about that ending up in a notes document, maybe we should be more focused on being able to justify our actions, consistently doing the right thing, rather than being afraid of our actions being written down in a note document.
Well, that's a good point as far as when you said that we walk out with things on our mind. I find it rather difficult for some Russian hacker or Chinese hacker to hack into my mind. It's very difficult to hack into my mind, but it's very easy if somebody wanted to hack into an electronic device, especially in closed session. There should be no information that leaves there other than what's in our minds.
Does it not leave in your Outlook inbox in a hypothetical scenario where you would receive information from those sessions? So again, these are weak arguments. Hacks can happen at any point, whether or not they're taking place in that room. I'll reiterate again, this is the only electronic device that's out on this dais by a council member. We can pretend that I'm not the issue, or we can have a real conversation about what we may be trying to hide. And so I think the point is moot. I would like to move forward with us putting something in writing prohibiting us from speaking to each other. I don't think it takes place, but I have no worries about that as a preventative measure. But the rest of this is honestly just nonsensical, given the fact that these concerns have been taking place long before I was on this dais, and there's been zero substantive action to address them at their root. So again, if we're afraid, I would like to finish my point here. If we're afraid of me writing down the things we're doing, maybe we should clean up our acts rather than me writing them down. Because I will always make sure that I keep a tab on holding us accountable on this dais.
Well, the issue we run into is we can have candid conversation that's not for public disclosure. Any notes taken can be public disclosure. So what is your objection of not using the devices? I mean, what is your objection not having it? I mean, I'm 65, I can hold a train of thought. Anybody can. So I'm not sure what the heartburn is about this. So why don't we just simply say, no electronic devices in closed session, and no texting and all that, just be done with it? What is the issue?
I take notes. I learn through notes. I document through notes. I review notes. I would encourage all of us to do that for the record. And again, I'll reiterate the fact that we shouldn't just do stuff just to do it. There has not been a single argument presented that has any merit within it. And if people are afraid of things that I'm writing down, they should look at themselves before they look at me writing those things down.
Well,
Mr. Mayor, can I interrupt? Just a point of order. If Councilmember Upo made a motion on item number 10, now we're talking about number 12. Would you go back, Councilmember Upo, and do your motion on item number 10?
So, Mr. Wallace, my motion on item number 10 was in relation to the consensus that we had earlier on the dais to prohibit the use of electronic devices among council members during public meetings to communicate with one another, but allow them to remain on for emergency purposes or other reasons.
Thank you. I second that motion.
So I will, before we move, I want to see if there's any additional comments or questions. I do want to add a couple of items for clarification, and I think they're important. The Stockton policy, I read it. I went onto their website and I read their policy. Their policy only refers to texting, actually not even texting, just in general, not using their cell phones while on the dais. Because their argument was, and part of their notes was that it seems disrespectful when people were on their cell phones and when people are on the audience speaking. And so that didn't refer, their policy didn't refer to anything else other than them being on the dais. Two, what I heard was a concern of potential leak of information from closed session. I think that concern has been there for a long time, like previously mentioned. There has been multiple times when there's been concerns and complaints about closed session information being leaked out into the community, and nothing has been done about it, even when the concern has been shared, and the council decided to not do anything. So to say that the concern is because the potential of leaking information, you don't need a computer to leak information, like it has been done in the past. All you got to do is just walk out and go out and, as a council member, share some of that information that was privileged and for closed session. And so, I think that if it's not a direct attack on anyone not being able to use their personal device to take notes, I think that is not something that I support, because it just doesn't make sense based on the arguments. But I will be very, I want to make sure that I'm clear on what the recommendation is moving forward, because, we shouldn't be spending time up here just discussing things just that are not really relevant to conducting business, other than just providing direct attacks on anybody on the council. But I'll hear again the motion to make sure that it's something that I would support, and for the language to be specific. So I believe there was some, is there any other additional comments or questions? So, yes. I just wanted to request. Hold on. Did I do public comment already? Yes, I'm sorry. Because there was already public comment open and nobody, yeah, thank you. So at this time, there is a motion on the floor. Can you be specific and repeat your motion?
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, I will add that it would make sense for us to have a general council protocols and procedures policy or amend to that. Would be happy to explore that, especially as we're having our next item discussion as well. It's gonna be something that's tied into that document. But whether or not we move with that, I would motion that we adopt a council policy to prohibit the use of electronic devices to communicate with one another during public meetings.
Actually, I'm looking at the item, and this is a discussion regarding use. So am I to assume that this is something that needs to be brought back with an action item, specific, like,
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, this is a pretty broad subject matter, and staff received a request to bring this item. So again, based on your discussion here, you can provide direction to staff, and we will bring back an item, potentially a resolution capturing the city council's intent for official adoption at a later date.
thank you for that clarification. So there's a motion on the floor, and I believe Mr. Wallace
I seconded it.
seconded. Okay. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Paul,
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra,
No.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 4-0.
Okay, next we have item number 11, discussion and direction on agenda setting procedures.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this was another item requested by the city council. As set forth in the staff report, the city does not currently have a formal process for council members to request agenda items to be placed on upcoming agendas. The past practice has been that a council member may request an item during the future agenda items portion of the agenda, obtain a second in support of that item, and separately from that, the mayor may request agenda items without obtaining additional support. So in light of the lack of an official or formal process, staff is requesting direction from the city council regarding this matter. The staff report also provides a number of options that are used by other jurisdictions for the city council's consideration. That concludes my report.
Thank you. Council, any questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Between you and I, since we're the ones that deal with the agendas on twice a month, what do you think, and this is why I think this is important, what do you think our procedure is for putting item on the agenda? Because I know it works for us, but what do you think? Do you think that it should be just one council member can put it on there, or does it need to be seconded? Can the mayor put it on, or does it have to be seconded? Or how does that work? What do you think the procedure is right now? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, I'm just trying to, just your train of thought.
So what I seen happen in the past, it's a council member can make a recommendation or request an item to be added onto the agenda, as long as he or she has a second, which is 2 people to support it. The mayor cannot argue against it. It has to be, on the agenda. Or the city manager can, and city manager or staff can add items to the agenda. The mayor can add items to the agenda without a second. And that's what I've seen in the past, unless I am not including anything or I'm missing anything.
Yeah, because we don't, and we have gone, it changes with each council and mayor and everything, but I don't think we have anywhere, can a mayor pro tem add an item without a second? In your train of
Oh,
thought.
you're asking me?
Yes, I'm just trying to add in your train of thought.
Well, before being a mayor pro tem, it was a council member. So a mayor pro tem was not elected, it was appointed. So for that reason, I don't think the mayor pro tem can or should add an item to the agenda by him or herself.
Okay, so where does it say, okay, we have a general laws city here. We have an elected official, but we're not a charter city, so we don't have a strong mayor type setup here. So other than run the meetings, where is the power derived from? The mayor can put item without having a second.
Well, you asked me for my opinion.
I understand. I'm just trying to, no, what I'm trying to say is, if the mayor can put it on the agenda, there's no special powers allotted, then how's other council members prohibited then? Because I don't see where the mayor has special powers, one vote, and can a mayor pro tem who works with the agendas say, I want this item removed? Can the item be removed? Or does it have to be a consensus of the mayor and the mayor pro tem for the agenda to move forward? Because I also look at the agenda and I say approve, and you also say approved. If we have difference of opinion, who overrules? I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying that we're having any issues. We don't. I'm just trying to get a clarification.
Is that question specifically just for me or for the rest of the council?
What is your, I'm trying to understand your train of thought because I don't know myself either. Everything's gone back and forth. Or is there special powers that are given through the city that mayor can be treated differently when it comes to putting items? Or does it need to be a second or, or can the items only be requested? And here's, I'm trying to narrow this down. When you call at the end of the meeting, any future agenda items, does it have to be requested there? Or can you somebody just get on the phone to staff and say, I want this item on the agenda?
I think we've been through that because, when part of the previous conversation has been that when a council member requests an item at the end of the meeting, normally, and then again, there's probably that gray area, which I don't know how, if city staff looks for a second from the rest of the council members, or if the city staff, if they see that it's important enough that it will be city staff's decision to add it, even though it was recommended by a council member, then, I think that maybe that has been done in the past, I don't know. But normally, most of the items that come onto the agenda always seem, for the most part, I think there has been only one occasion where you and I had a disagreement.
Only one, you're right.
But for the most part, it has always been what has been recommended, maybe just the language or some minor details. But I think that to your point, if I believe that the mayor pro tem should have, I guess if you want to call it the power to also make decisions just like the mayor, then, maybe we should go back and consider the mayor pro tem be elected and not appointed. Because the mayor, there's a difference, and we can start with the mayor being only elected for 2 years, where the council members are elected for 4 years. And then again, I welcome, and I think this is good to be able to have conversations, to be able to have this in place to be, I guess, prevent future council members from having confusions or not understanding, or maybe the previous legal attorneys that were here, they had a different opinion, and, you know, and so on. So, but if you're asking me for my personal opinion, and if I was the only one to decide on that, that would be it. That the mayor pro tem alone cannot have an item on the agenda unless a second. And I think it's not such a big issue, because if the item and most of the time, probably 100% of the time, it's relevant and it's adequate to be on the agenda, just call for a second and get somebody else to second your motion, and it's done.
Yeah. First of all, Mr. Mayor, I want you to know, and the public to know, in no way am I insinuating or anything that the mayor has done anything. No, there has not. You and I have only disagreed once on one agenda item, but never again, and that's not, what I'm trying to do is to put out, if the mayor can request an item by an individual, as an individual, should we extend that same courtesy to each council member, is what I'm trying to say. The only reason I'm saying Mayor Pro Tem is I don't want to put other council members, I don't want to mention their names, I don't want to mention their position. It was more of, should we extend that courtesy, or should we all have the same rules that we apply, that if a council member can't put an item on the agenda single-handedly, should anybody else be able to do that? That's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to say it should be changed. I'm just trying to, and forgive me for saying this, but Councilmember A should have the same freedom, I don't want to use the word freedom, but to go to staff and say, I would like to put this item on the agenda. Or should we limit it that when we go to, like at the end of the day, at the end of the meeting, you're going to say, any future agenda items, should we limit everybody to that? That's what I'm trying to say. Should it be limited to that, or should we be able to call and then have somebody call second? And, you know, it just becomes, it's just trying to get it to everybody has the same access to getting agendas. That's all it is.
Mr. Mayor, do you mind if I jump in?
Yes, go ahead.
I actually agree with the fact that we should have relatively the same amount of power as you. I mean, given the fact that you are a legislator, not an executive. We have a council manager form of government where we appoint an executive, so we're all legislators in that sense. Now, you have less years elected and you have to do more work, so that piece of it I'll gladly decline. But again, we are all legislators here. I do think we should follow the same process. Council, I do want to remind you of the fact that this dispute, I believe, came up in December of 2024. We did discuss this January 13, 2025, the potential of setting up a policy around this. And I believe at that meeting, it was referenced that there was a government code reference that gave you the authority to read it. I'll read it. It says, Government Code Section 36803. The mayor may make or second any motion and, quote, present and discuss any matter as a member of the council. And I believe the interpretation of that was you can present and discuss any matter because you are the mayor, and so you are given an authority that we don't have. City Attorney, I apologize. I was supposed to send you this before the meeting, and I forgot to because I knew I was going to bring this up. Is it your interpretation, and we can get into this at a later date, that this language that says may present and discuss any matter as a member of the council gives the mayor the sole authority to bring an item to the agenda that the rest of us don't have? Sorry, that's Government Code Section 36803.
36803.
While he's looking, I just want you to know, I didn't put this item on the agenda. It's not my item, it's not my requested item at all.
So to respond to Councilman Upal's question, I did pull up Government Code Section 36803, and it reads, the mayor may make or second any motion and present and discuss any matter as a member of the council. So that's the direct text of that statute. I have not had an opportunity to review or interpret it. With that said, I am aware that case law does provide the mayor or the presiding member of any board of a public agency discretion on how to conduct a meeting, again, as the presiding officer. So the mayor would have some authority there as well. But as to this particular statute, I would need more time to review it.
Yeah, I agree with you in some ways that the mayor, by the elected position as the chair, does run the meetings, has direct control over the meetings, how they're ran, but I'm not sure if, like you said, we'll wait for your research, if it gives any direct authority to have special rules where other council members don't have the same authority, because that may be there, but what is in our city code? What does our city code say? You know, we need to make sure that both of them are in sync and again, legal. Thank you, Councilmember Ruppel, but maybe we need to do a little more research and say, do they have it? For me, I think any council member should at the meeting, unless they deem to be something of an emergency, that when the agenda comes to the end of the meeting, it says, I'd like to place this item at the next meeting or so. I think it should be done at that point for everybody. The mayor pro tem, everybody, unless there's something of an urgent matter. I think that's what I think should be. I'm saying I should be to the same rules as everybody else. Because I've heard rumblings that certain people can get their items on the agenda faster than the others, you know, and this just levels the playing field for everybody. And to me, we can go to the city manager and say, I'd like to consider this item, and have them research and bring it back, you know, because by having somebody do this, now you just got the staff. You can call 3-4 days before the agenda comes and say, I want this item. Staff doesn't have time to prepare it. So if we put these items, say tonight, hey, bring the item for discussion regarding duck ponds or whatever, at least the council has time. So I'm just trying to do it, you know. There's always urgent matter, and if there's something urgent, maybe that's something that, you know, and also need a little clarification, since the mayor and the mayor pro tem approved the agenda and we've never had any issues other than one time. If one doesn't agree, does the item get pulled? So we need that clarification, you know.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I generally agree with all of those points. I don't think that our mayor should have individual authority to put items on the agenda, given that we're all legislators. Again, unfortunately, you have more work to do, but I mean, you did run for mayor, so that's on you. But I would ask that legal research that code, just because that's what the reference that was made last time. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I do think the language is pretty clear that it gives you broad authority in that sense. But if we can work around that at a municipal level in our own policies and procedures, I would like to see us all follow a uniform practice because we're all council members effectively. I would agree that we should not be trying to get items on the agenda 3-4 days before unless they're emergencies. Be mindful of staff time as it relates to that. We can consider putting that into a broader council protocols and procedures document. One thing that I would ask the council to consider, I'm okay with the second. I think that's a solid procedure. If you get a second, you get to put an item on the agenda, because ultimately we know that at the beginning of a meeting, the majority of the council can always amend and remove the item if they decided to. So I do think the second is sufficient to get an item on the agenda and at least give those elected members the ability to get something in public view and have that public discussion leading up to the meeting. One thing that I would want council to consider, and there's going to be some nuances around this. I mentioned it when we had this conversation back in January of last year. Do we want to give an individual council member something called, we could call it an entitled item, where you are entitled one item. It doesn't have to be every meeting. Maybe it could be once a month. Hypothetically speaking, you feel extremely strong about something. People in the community feel extremely strong about something. They feel that you've been elected to champion it, but you can't get anybody else on council to even consider it, whether it's because you're a psychopath or because there's political reasons that you can't get that on the agenda. And I'll actually just point to the council that we had in 2020. I think there were times, I didn't watch much at that time, but just viewing where I would hope that an individual council member would be able to, at times, force something through to at least get to the top of an agenda, even if it would be removed at the beginning of a meeting. So I would ask that council consider that nuance. You definitely want limitations on that because you don't want any of us just abusing that item time and time again. I would limit it to no more than one item in a meeting and maybe even only one of those a month. But do consider that for political dynamics that may happen at any point in time for the city's future.
Yeah, I'm through the chair, of course, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you, Councilman Ruppel, but I don't know if we can do it once a month because that's probably abuse of power there. Is probably once every quarter or something, because if you got items that nobody wants to support, well then, we still got to be understanding this council time. You coming in and staff does, or no, I don't mean you, I'm sorry, I didn't mean you personally, but a council member requests something, staff spends all that staff time and all that, and it comes out of here and the other 3 or 4 say, hell no, we just wasted time. So there's a potential for making points sometimes. So I think maybe I would consider, and while we're researching, maybe limit it to a certain time, then a time frame.
I would be open to that, yeah, because you don't want to abuse staff time either to continue bringing things back. I'm open to the cadence there, just did want to mention that as a consideration. Council, I'm not sure how many other questions or comments you have, but I do think that it would be wise to have a council protocols and procedures document. It could get into other things as well. I know we've had that conversation in the past, but where all of this stuff could be laid in one place.
Okay.
If I can add just a couple, some additional information, but probably, I think you brought up, Mr. Summer, you brought up you mentioned that you wanted to make it clear that you did not request this item to be on the agenda, which is, but to that point, I'm wondering who, and just for my information and transparency, who requested this item on the agenda? No one, it just appeared, which is fine. So, but anyways, I just wanted to piggyback on your comment. And then maybe about 6 months, 8 months ago, there was I was watching a meeting for another council meeting. You know, I guess that's what I do for fun, because I don't like fishing, I don't skateboard or anything like that. I don't barbecue, I don't drink beer, or, I don't hang out or watch football. So I just watch council meetings for other cities, including Salinas, Merced, Turlock, Modesto, and others. But anyways, during one of those meetings, a similar item was in conversation with, for the city of Merced, and they were having this similar conversation. And what I learned, and some of the things that stuck to my mind, was that I think prior to that conversation they were having, that each or only one council member could, was needed to request an item on the agenda. And, they're a bigger city and everything, but that's also why they have 6-hour meetings, 8-hour meetings sometimes, until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I think one of you guys mentioned earlier that if there's an item that doesn't have the support of the majority of the council, then we're just wasting our time. And that is why I think having the ability of having a second, at least it has the potential that possibly there will be a majority and we didn't waste our time, half an hour, 45 minutes on the dais, plus staff time creating and researching and building up that report. So for at least, I'm thinking that for any item that comes onto the agenda, there's always, 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours invested in any item coming before us. And if it's my desire to only bring an item just because, and there's no support, then we just wasted all the time. So that is why I believe we should have a second. And still, there's a potential that there will be a majority, and we didn't just waste our time on it. And whether the end result is because politics or not, but at least we gave it a chance. So that is why I believe it should have a second. And for transparency, probably I am the one that we're talking about that added some items to the agenda at the last minute. But I was educated after that, and I learned that most of the items that there's a calendar that for items on the agenda, probably they need to come onto the agenda, onto the calendar about a month before. So that staff could have time to research and put the report together, and then 2 weeks prior, more or less, or for legal to give staff and legal the opportunity to look at items to make sure that there's no concerns instead of the week before or 3 to 4 days before. So I apologize. That was me. The one that you guys were talking about. No, hold on. The one that you guys were talking. Just give me a second. The one that you guys were talking about, but I had a good, nice conversation with the city attorney, and very educated conversation. I learned a lot, and I said I apologize. I don't know if the apologies was referred to city staff or not, but I did learn my lesson. But those were items that seemed to that. I'm not going to go into the details of why they were added at the last minute, but I take responsibility and I apologize. And I learned my lesson, and I learned that if there's an item, and that is why at the last meeting, when someone requested an item to be here at the next meeting, I asked council, will you be okay if we bring this item in a month so that we could be able to provide staff and not ample time to do the work, and not put pressure on them? And you guys say yes. So I just wanted to share that for transparency, lesson learned. And if I make the same mistake again, then it's my fault. Then you guys can come back and scream at me again. So I believe every item should have a second. Every item should be reviewed and like most of the time. But I do want to make sure that council is mindful of, now that I learned that the process, because nobody told me that. We had a process prior to, when the previous city manager was here, and I learned that, and I followed that process, and it made sense. But maybe I didn't have enough time to communicate with city staff and figure out that there was already a plan in place. In my mind, there was no plan. But then again, I'm not the know-it-all, and so I learned. Now, I'm going to be more mindful and then provide the items as requested, unless it's really an emergency. Like today, we had an emergency, So just to be transparent and make those recommendations.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
And again, I go back to if you look at our agenda, just before adjournment, there's council directional on future agenda items. I think we should be requesting items there. Whether we need a first and a second, I think we can leave it for a debate coming up. But I think unless it's some sort of a urgent item, then I think this is where we should make our request, because we can also get an answer from staff. What is the expected timeline when it will be on the agenda? So we can get that. City manager can respond and say, based on what you're being requested, I anticipate 5 minutes of staff time to bring this up. or it may be a whole bunch of time where I have to get involved, engineering, or whatever it happens to be, you know? It's gonna take a little time for us to put it together, so we have some sort of expectation. So that's what I would kind of look at.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
one point of consideration for the suggestion that the Mayor Pro Tem just made, I do think generally that is where we should be making these requests. I mean, we have a whole section of the agenda reserved for that. But there's times where something may not pop up in your head until maybe the next day after the meeting, a resident requests something where you're like, hey, that makes a lot of sense. Let me see if I can tag team with another council member to get that on. And holidays, meetings get canceled. We may wind up in unnecessary delays if we force it to be at a meeting. So I would propose that we make an earnest effort to propose items in the future agenda items section. But if we happen to do so via email or happen to run into staff in person and we have two folks there that are willing to corroborate, we take the onus upon ourselves to report that at the next agendized meeting that we requested it, and we stay mindful of the staff time that it's going to take to put that item on the agenda.
Councilmember Upal, through the chair, I understand what you're saying. If we forget to put something on the agenda, or a citizen called you, unless it's some sort of a health and safety issue, I'm not sure why it needs to be at the next agenda. Or are you saying that somebody calls you tomorrow and say, and forgive me, Councilmember Upal, I am a citizen, I think you guys need to discuss this. Is it only good for tomorrow, or is it good for 3-4 days before the agenda comes out? You see what I'm saying?
Well, we can always be mindful of those timelines, and I want to be clear, I'm not saying that it would have to come at the next agendized meeting. Ultimately, whatever time it's going to take to prepare the item, it's going to take. So even if somebody called me tomorrow about something that I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, let's put that on an agenda. If it takes 3 months to research, it takes 3 months to research. I'm only saying that if we force ourselves to only present items during the future agenda item section, we may delay research that's already going to be happening leading up to a meeting. And we can always announce at the next agendized meeting, hey, I reached out to staff about this item. We're probably going to take another month or two from here, and this will be coming in the future.
Yeah, I agree with you. However, most of our items that come forward us, it usually comes because staff needs those items on there. Staff says we need to do this, this, and this. Most of the items that come here, with the exception of today's meeting, are usually staff initiated. Very rarely are they council initiated. So I think we're not gonna be able to, we're just working on something right now. So I was just gonna think about that, there needs to be, how many can you do? If you don't need a second, then why even have a policy? You can just simply call and say, I want this item. So you know what I'm saying? Idea is everybody has the same thing. Otherwise, we're all calling, says, Jose, put this on there. Jose, put this, and it becomes the same free for all type thing,
Well, I want to be clear. I don't expect to not have a second. So I'll be honest in saying that working on a potential item with Councilmember Wallace, I'm not ready to go to propose it specifically tonight. I was hoping that I would send an email to staff in a few days with Mr. Wallace CC'd, hey, we both would like to see this come on an agenda. Now, as long as we give staff the proper lead time, I don't necessarily see the issue with that. And we can be transparent at a future public meeting as well. But that's kind of the situation I'm more so alluding to. But again, this is a work in progress. We're going to see something come back, and we can hash these more minor details out at a later date.
My concern isn't having the items come up, is to have staff put other things aside, and now I got to get this on there. It's okay to queue it up for coming up, but not necessarily for next meeting. You see what I'm saying? I'm just trying to avoid me calling Jose and say, I want this, this, and this. They also got to balance their agenda out. In the end, the mayor and I will see it, but it also, need to balance our agenda items. Sometimes we have 10 items, sometimes we have fewer items, so it also helps the staff balance the meetings, everybody. So one meeting isn't really long, the other meeting isn't really short, so we're all kind of level off, you know?
Council, any other questions, comments? Now I even forgot if I went up for public comment or not. I didn't? All right, so I want to give you guys a break. So at 9:05, I will go out for public comment. Is there anyone on the phone in regards to this item? Coming back to the chamber, any comments, questions in the chamber? Can you please step forward?
Hi, my name is Parundru Paul. Feel free to...
Can you check to see if it's on? Yes, it is. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Parundru Paul. Feel free to dismiss me if this is not relevant. It's something I planned on getting through in the general public comments. I didn't make it in time, but I think it might be relevant to this agenda item here, considering you guys are discussing procedural agenda setting matters. It's in regards to public commenting and how it's organized within your items. I'll just pause to confirm whether this is something it's okay for me to discuss, or I can just come back during the next meeting. Okay, I was just gonna ask, I just wanted some clarification from the council when public comment is generally set to be within your guys' discussion, because sometimes we'll have discussions like you guys just had now, where you had your full-fledged discussion, and now it's been open for public comment, which is what I prefer as a member of the public, and I want to come speak on an item after you guys have all spoken and given your comments to have a lot of relevant information to speak on. Other times, there are items discussed, such as the last item, where Mr. Wallace was the only one who spoke before public comment. No one else said anything, so it was like 30 seconds of discussion from one member only. It opened up for public comment, and there was nothing relevant to discuss on, really, because he said one thing. It seemed pretty self-relevant, so I was like, okay, we'll move on. And then after public comment section was closed, then you guys continued to have about a 30-minute conversation. So I'm not sure what the proper place is supposed to be for public comment, but I just wanted to request as a member of the public that if it's possible, more often than not, that council get majority of its discussion done before opening for public comment, so that residents have some relevant information to come up and speak to you guys on, just like this item here. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there any additional citizen comments in the chamber? Seeing none, closing the citizen comments at 9:07 on this item. So this item is also a discussion and direction. I think there was a lot of conversation. Probably this is a good time to provide direction. If it's something that the majority of the council wants for staff to work on and bring back, or continue, I'm not sure where the majority of the council stands.
Mr. Mayor, I think there's a potential two-pronged approach here, but I'll check in with staff to see if we can move this route. There's a consensus understanding that we should all have a second for an item, and so I would motion that just be the standard going forward, that we must have a second to get an item on the agenda. Maybe an additional nuance on the legal research side, given the government code section we mentioned earlier, but I would ask for that. And then I'd also ask that we direct staff to develop a council protocols and procedures document, which more formally lays out some of these policies and then can be amended and changed later as needed. The item that we discussed previously could also be tied into something like that. So I would ask that those two things move forward.
Okay, so anybody else wants to add or clarify? So let me clarify. Is that a second for everyone, including the mayor, or just for the council as we have done in the past so far?
I would say second for everyone, but I know we're gonna have legal research that needs to be done on whether or not that can apply. But my desire would be that all of us need a second.
Including the mayor.
Including the mayor.
Anything else? So, you want to make that into a motion?
Let me try to make a better motion here. I would motion that we direct staff to develop a council protocols and procedures document in which there is a policy that states that all council members must have a second from another member of the council to bring an item on the agenda. And I'd ask that we direct legal counsel to research the legality of that policy as it relates to the mayor's ability to put an item on the agenda.
And then I think, if I may, just it's another item that was mentioned and needs to be clarified, that way we're not doing double the work or coming back in a year from now. Also, another item that was mentioned was the procedure for how agendas are approved. Whether it's, if it has to require any item on the agenda to be fully approved by both mayor and mayor pro tem, and then also, which I think that's not an issue, approving the agenda. I think the issue was agreeing with keeping or deleting any one specific item on the agenda.
I think the reason the mayor pro tem and the mayor get the agenda approval, in case the mayor is going to be absent. So it's just keeping the other person up to speed on what's coming up. That's all it is for.
And then again, another thing that I have thought in the past, and I'm not sure if it's relevant to this or not, but if at any time both the mayor, and I think it happened once before, some years ago, if both the mayor and the mayor pro tem are absent, who or how, what is the process of selecting who would be will be running the meeting?
I thought it was senior council member by,
Is that in policy? And so just, once again, it goes back to future.
yeah, I'm only aware of it happening in Livingston once, where the mayor and the mayor pro tem were both absent. So it went to the most senior in time-wise council member.
I remember this happened probably about 3-4 years ago, but I'm not sure how. It was just probably whoever had most power, and anyways. But I think and then again, I don't know if this would fall into that, because if it's already included, then it would benefit if this ever came up, any disagreements or understandings. But you can probably figure that out later and let us know if it's something that is worth including or not.
Mr. Mayor, I do have a question, point of clarification here. Earlier, there was discussion of council members getting a freebie type item without having to obtain a second, perhaps once a quarter. Is that something that the council would like to include in this draft document?
I'm not sure. Personally, I'm not too sure about that, because I think it goes back to if it's an item that it's not going to have, enough support on the dais when it comes before the council, then it's a lot of staff time. But, because any one of us can become very passionate about something, and then if we use that token to bring that item forward, it could, in a few words, it could just be a waste of time and money, but that's just how I see it.
Mr. Mayor, I was the one that proposed it earlier, but we didn't get legitimate consensus on it, and I know there's more broad issues to address. I would be okay with us leaving it out for now and consider a potential amendment at a later date if we'd like.
Council, anything else? Any other questions on the direction?
No, so city councils may adopt procedures and protocols for themselves, so we'll provide some standard language to, in that draft document, in addition to the agenda-setting procedure.
All right, anything else? Okay, wait, so, but was that, I'm thinking that there was a consensus for that direction from the council? Mr. Roth?
Can you
Mr. Wallace?
please
Do a
restate?
Yes, ma'am.
what the consensus
Yeah.
was, because we've been going back and forth.
Sorry. So the motion is to direct staff to develop a council protocols and procedures document, which includes which includes a policy that requires council members to have a second from another member of the council to put an item on the agenda.
And was there a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Second by Councilmember Roth. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth,
Yes.
Councilmember Opal,
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 5-0.
All right, our last item, and actually we're still early, it's only 9 o'clock. Item number 12, discussion regarding potential designation of scribe and keeping of a minute book of all closed session meetings pursuant to Government Code Section 54957.2.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council requested that staff bring this item regarding the potential designation of a scribe for closed session to keep notes and meeting minutes. Those meeting minutes would be safely guarded and not subject to public disclosure. Currently, the City Council does not have any policies regarding this issue, and so staff is requesting that the City Council provide some direction, specifically, if the council wants to move forward in this direction, who shall serve as the designated scribe, whether software should be considered, and whether this should be entered into the, as part of a City Council policy and procedures handbook, or if it should be codified in the municipal code. The difference there would be probably a resolution versus an ordinance. And there is a government code section 54957.2, that does allow the city to, again, make this designation. That summarizes the report.
All right, council, any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
since I had a second to get this on the agenda, I've had a couple things. Number one, we need staff to tell us what the cost would be to have a scribe. That would be something that's not addressed that I noticed. What would be the excess cost? Number one, keeping the city clerk, RC, or somebody till possibly 11 o'clock midnight. That was something I hadn't thought about ahead till just recently. My other section with it would be that I brought it up, and I've thought about it a lot. I like the idea of the scribe, but I'm not sure if the cost is worth it. We've had discussions, and Mark, you gotta keep me out of trouble here, during closed sessions where an item was questioned and asked. Councilmember Upel, from his notes, was able to provide us an answer to that question. Now, that's not just the general, that's not saying anything bad. It's just from his notes. He answered a question during a closed session. That's all I'm saying. He was able to address that. Now, a scribe would have to go back and just taking specific comments, word for word, what everybody's saying. What Councilmember Upel is doing is he is writing down comments. He is not recording it. And when I brought that up to you with Mark, I brought that up because I'm not sure if I mentioned he wasn't recording it. He is just making comments Now, my other question would be, the people that call in on closed session, I think they should be made aware of that procedure, because they may or may not like that. And it's not something we have done. But I like the fact that when an item came up in closed session, he was able to go back in his notes and tell us what we had discussed a month, 2 months ago, because he had it in his notes. He's not recording 100%, to my knowledge, he is only taking notes. So that has changed my thinking a little bit on this, but I would still need to know the cost of a scribe to the city, and who it would be, how the city manager, whoever would have to decide who that scribe was. So there's a dollar amount that's affected with the city. So there's a little bit more to this than I originally thought. So I think it should be pulled until we get some more answers. Number one, on the scribe, just the people that call in on a closed session that are giving us information, they need to be made aware that somebody is taking notes, but not recording it. There's a complete difference of opinion there. That's a little bit changed from what I originally thought, but during one of our last council members, there was a question that came up. Nobody knew the answer until Councilmember Hooper went back into his notes and told us what that outcome was. So I just think I need to know the scribe cost to the city, and then get a little bit more direction from maybe the city attorney. But I think the people that call in must be made aware of it. That's what I'll say about that subject.
Can I chime in? I know by taking notes, the recording helps me a lot to go back, because there's no way for me to get everybody's information, whatever they're saying, because it's just so much back and forth. So it would be too hard just to note take. You would have to get like a transcriber from a court that does a shorthand, but it would be recording in order for somebody to do even verbatim.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Wallace that we should look into cost of scribes. I'm glad that Councilman Ruppel was able to give the answer, but that's his note or his recognition, not necessarily what transpired. True. It is not necessarily what really happened, it's how that person noted it. So I can take a note, and the way I interpret it is one thing, the way everybody else interprets it is another thing. So to rely on one person to say, what was it, it becomes, I don't know about that part, you know.
Go ahead, Mr. Wallace. I'll jump in after you.
Yeah, I agree. That was one of the other questions I have. It's just, but I still need to know the cost for the city. I don't know if it's going to cost someone sitting here, if we have to go into closed session after a regular meeting and come back, someone's going to be here till 11:30, 12 o'clock at night. How much does that cost? And then, even though it's the scribe that has it, she or he or whoever's doing it may not have that information right then and there during the closed session. So then that leaves me another quandary. How do we get that answer? I opened a can of worms here.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
If I can jump in. First things first, I do appreciate council for both recognizing the value of notes and also recognizing the value of unbiased information. I think those two things are extremely important. I do see value in this item. I see value in us having documentation of these discussions, and by all means unbiased and kind of more non-political documentation of the discussion. I would not want us to ask a member of our staff to stay long. I mean, sometimes we go, many times we've gone past midnight, not sometimes, many times. It would make the most sense for the city clerk to handle this. I do know, from little research, it looked like that's what's done in other cities, but I would not want that to be the case with us. My initial thinking was that it would be great for potentially the city attorney to fill this role. In conversations with the city attorney, that is not really going to be feasible. And so in the absence of between our city manager and city attorney, obviously they have other obligations to fulfill while they're in the room. And it's not going to be one of us. I would ask that council consider the potential of having a recorder if we wanted a kind of just like a tape recorder type thing that we would securely store within the city. There is an AI called Otter AI, and I'm sure there's others now as well. I have last used this like over a year ago, and there's been new stuff coming out, even though a lot of it is slop. But it essentially can transcribe video material, audio and or video material. There's people that will, in times where they can't attend Zoom meetings or something like that, they'll have the Otter AI connect to their account, and it'll just go through the meeting and kind of put out a whole transcript for them. Now, there will be slight issues, just given that it's being done by an AI, but that's the value of having a recording where we have a legitimate hard reference to all matters that were discussed. One of the other pieces of value that I would see in doing something, moving in this direction, is that we have clear documentation of not just what was discussed, but of the direction that was provided. And while I would like to refrain from bringing somebody else into the room, not just because of the cost, but also due to their time, I do think it'd be pretty simple if we directed both the city manager and the city attorney to send council members an email after the meeting in a group thread with all of us BCC'd. At a basic level, this was the item, this was the direction. So just to make sure that we have a paper trail for that, and we can consider having a recording so that anything that we would like legitimately transcribed, we'd have the ability to do that as well. So we may be able to kill those two birds with those stones there if we don't move in the direction of a person, but I'm open to evaluating the cost and see what that might look like as well.
And personally, in reviewing this item and just analyzing, I know that there's other cities that do have a scribe, and they do have assigned a city employee to be there and be responsible for the notes through the scribe or some digital format. But I do have concerns, not only, I do believe that years ago, that was always, I wish we had recorded closed sessions, but because it's useful, and as you guys have mentioned, in the past, there's been a few instances where there's been confusion on what was approved or not approved, and Mr. Wallace mentioned in one of those instances, it was clarified by Mr. Paul's notes. But I'm also concerned that regardless of who that city employee might be responsible of the scribe notes or the closed session notes, I'm not sure that I want to put anybody in a position to where they would be responsible for closed session information. And probably more than likely, the city clerk seems to be the one that everybody thinks about, because she's the one that keeps a lot of our records and stuff like that. But also thinking that, or even if it's not the city clerk, anybody else is a city employee, and they are also members of a union. And every now and then things come up, and who's going to be responsible to manage that scribe or whatever recording it might be if the conversation is about any of them. And then there's conversations, not necessarily that we're always saying anything bad about city employees, but we always have discussions that there are closed session for a reason. So you know, I'm not sure if I feel very comfortable having or placing any city employee in that awkward situation, because, and if there's ever an allegation that like there has been, closed session for information being leaked, you know, almost everybody's gonna start looking at that person who was responsible for that recording. So, you know, it's very sensitive. I do agree that it would be very helpful because it has been helpful. And it's very difficult for us, for anybody to remember everything that we talked about every 2 weeks for the last 5 years, you know, or however many years you guys, we've been elected. So, and then again, I also agree that even as maybe the city manager or the city attorney might be taking some notes, but it's very, you know, basic notes. And then if we ask them to be focused on the note-taking, then they're not gonna be focused on, you know, on our conversation. And then again, one of us might, you know, go make a boo-boo, and then, you know, city attorney, it's too busy taking notes, and then, you know, so I don't think that would either be a good idea, as you guys have mentioned. So, I don't know where I'm at. I think I'm like in the middle somewhere. I'm not really, I mean, I do like the idea of having notes, because they can be helpful. But how that's gonna be, I'm not sure.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes,
Sorry.
go ahead.
I do share the concerns of bringing another individual into the room just as it relates to potential leaks. I mean, at the end of the day, we have to trust our staff, but I mean, risk is risk. And I didn't consider the comments that you had made about nuances around bargaining groups, all of that stuff. I mean, there's plenty of sensitive material that gets discussed in those rooms. I would say that I do think recording might still be a good option, if that would fulfill Councilmember Wallace's desire, just to make sure that there's a legitimate record of everything that's going on that is completely unbiased. And obviously that would be safely stored, managed in City Hall, and privy only to certain members of the city through our policies. And as it relates to decisions, I mean, yeah, we definitely don't want our city manager and our city attorney too busy documenting things the whole time. It's gonna take away from their ability to engage and analyze what's going on. But I do think a simple email saying, these 3 items were discussed, this was the 3 decisions, like just sentence, it's memo to all of us after every meeting. It'll keep us on track in that sense and create that paper trail moving forward, along with that recording that we have in case we ever need to go back and hash something out in greater detail. So I would consider moving in that direction if that satisfies the needs of the council members, and I share the concerns of bringing another individual into the room.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
let me throw a little wrench in this thing. A question for legal. Are future council members allowed to have access to our closed session meetings?
Likely, yes. So future council members would step into the shoes of their predecessors and be able to access materials that would be covered by an extension of the attorney-client privilege.
So if we had a discussion 5 years ago where some of the folks were not on the council now, can they have access to what was discussed back then?
Yes, if the proposal is to record the closed session discussions or record closed session meeting minutes, those records would be around, well, subject to the city's retention policy as well.
No, I'm sorry, maybe I need to clarify. November, we're gonna have election. January, December, we're gonna have some potential for new council members. Do they have access to all of our current discussions?
The answer is potentially yes.
Forget about being recorded or subscribed or anything. Do they have access? Can they walk up to the city manager or who has a privileged access, an attorney, and say, I'd like to know what was the discussion regarding this back then? Do they have that access currently? Forget the recording.
Potentially yes. And based on, again, the scope of the attorney-client privilege and them stepping into the shoes of their predecessors.
So there is nothing prohibiting me from getting access to all the previous discussions if I'm not on the council at the time.
Can I jump in real quick? I think to clarify, so for instance, just to give you probably a very specific example, you took a 2-year break, I don't know, 2018, 2020. Right. And so your question is, now that you're in the council, can you be allowed to go back in the notes from closed session from 2018, 2020? Right. When he was not an elected official, but now he is an elected official, can he go back?
Same answer. You're asking for my legal analysis on the spot. The answer is potentially yes.
Can you research that for us, please?
All right, so let me,
I've had conflicting answers, that's why.
all right, so I'm not sure where we're at anymore. Yeah, well, no, yes, I know, it's item number 12. But did I go out for public comment yet? No, not yet, all right. So I will ask if there's any additional questions or comments at this time.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Right now, I'm on the fence. I mean, I hear the pros, I hear the cons, and, you know, there's a lot of things that need to be researched that have not been researched in first. We need to really look at things. Putting an employee in there, words can get misconstrued. Having someone take notes on a computer could get misconstrued, no offense. But I'm just saying, I mean, there's a lot of issues with this. So I think we need to really look at it with a fine-tooth microscope, if you will, and bring it back or end it. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just listening, just listening to the conversation, there's questions that I have about this that I would like to reach out to legal counsel individually about after the meeting. So I would ask that we continue discussion potentially at a later date, get some more research on some of those finer details, and then consider approval at another meeting.
Mr. Mayor, if staff could get some clarification regarding the open issues. So far, I have that the council wants a cost estimate on how much it would cost the city to keep an employee late by potentially 1 to 2 hours for a closed session meeting, which tend to happen at our regularly scheduled meetings, and then also to check with staff who might be the most likely designated scribe. And I'm looking at Monica, though there may be other candidates. We're keeping it open. Was there anything further that you'd like us to research while this item is being tabled?
My question, sir.
What was that?
My question. Okay, don't do it here, okay?
So so now I guess I want to ask the question, is there enough consensus on the dais to give direction for staff to invest time and effort right now? Or are we asking to continue this item and bring it back for further discussion with more information from staff? Because if, right now I'm in the middle, I don't think I'm not sure which way to go. I know it's important to to help us sometimes clarify some questions, but I'm not, we will probably need to get consensus. Mr. Wallace, I see you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, two things then. We need to know the cost of the scribe, and the second option would be if it's a recording, who controls it, who would have access to it. If we get those couple of things resolved, I think we could come to a better decision. Those two things would be the most critical answers we need. The scribe, the cost of the city, a recording, who would have control of it locked up, and who could get access to it. We could get recommendations from the staff and then look at them at a future date. That would be my motion.
I will second it.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Wallace, second by Mayor Pro Tem. Roll call.
Before that, I know there was more conversations. Is this the only thing you want, is for staff to go out to see how much it costs to scribe, and who will control the recording and keep it? Okay.
All right. Was there anything else missing?
Wallace. Who's second?
Mr. Samra.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth?
Mr. Mayor, sorry, did we go to public comment on this item?
No.
Oh, no,
Not yet.
didn't.
All right, so before we get in trouble again, I'm gonna go out for public comment at 9:41. Anyone on the phone? Any comments or questions on this item? Hearing none, coming back to the chamber, is there any comments in the chamber?
Hello, council. My name is Parwinder Upal. I would just like to hear from the council, if possible, why the council is now considering keeping a scribe. Like, this is being brought up, we don't have a scribe at the moment, why the council is now considering having a scribe recording closed session meetings, just so the public can have some awareness on why this is being discussed. Also, I think it's relevant, considering the previous discussion on, considering one of the considerations now is having a recorder, which would be an electronic device, and we just had an entire discussion about banning the use of electronic devices entirely back there, because Chinese or Russian hackers can just hack anything, including city devices, doesn't matter if they're personal or city-owned, but at the same time, we're gonna bring in another person that can increase the potential for leaks, increase the potential for hacking into electronic devices, unless we're gonna have a scribe who's recording everything on hand, and at the same time banning electronic devices. And then what Mr. Wallace brought up a good point. If you have a scribe who's recording everything, that doesn't mean the scribe's gonna on hand immediately have notes available to help answer questions when something gets brought up from months and months ago. That can be resolved, but that's not gonna be done on paper well, so it's gonna be done electronically. But Mr. Samra seems to have a very big issue with electronic devices, so I'm not sure how you're squaring that circle there. I think that's something the council should consider, considering Mr. Samra, one of our longest tenured council members, had a very, very big issue with electronic devices. I figure you guys should probably consider that. But otherwise, yeah, there's clear security concerns with a scribe, although I'm sure they can be resolved. I appreciate that the council is appreciating the value of having some of the discussions that are taking place in closed session recorded for the purposes of recall in the future. That also seemed to be an issue with Mr. Samra. I'm not sure exactly how he plans to square that circle. I just think the council should consider those previous discussions instead of moving on as if they didn't happen at all. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional citizen comments in the chamber at this time? Seeing none, closing the citizen comments on 9:44, bringing it back to the dais. So, any additional questions, comments? We have a motion on the floor by Mr. Wallace, second by Mr. Samra. Roll call, please.
Roll call, Councilmember Roth?
No.
Councilmember Upal?
Yes.
Councilmember Wallace,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Samra,
Yes.
Mayor Moran.
Yes.
Motion passes by a vote of 4-0.
All right, next we have announcements and reports. City Council announcements and reports. Mr. Wallace?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Planning Commission meeting last week. They had to go over conflict of interest, and we had to have a lawyer presented. I would have assumed everybody on the Planning Commission already knew all that stuff. The presentation was great. I hate to think what it costs to have a lawyer there to present it, where it could have been done maybe in-house. But all in all, I think it went well. They still got a little off track at the meeting, and I'll address that later between the city manager and planning director. But I was hoping that solved their questions, because they were actually able to make a decision, even though they kicked some things down the road again. Other than that, everything is going good. I know we have a stakeholders meeting coming up, and the other part that was brought up earlier, a couple months ago or a couple meetings ago, on the duties of the council. My eye doctor doesn't think I should be driving any distances at night. So it's like, okay, can I go back and forth in the city under 5 miles or something? And she goes, yeah, I just don't want you to go on an hour drive or anything at nighttime because of my eyesight. So I'm requesting to be taken up under consideration, swapping myself and Councilmember Upel on the San Joaquin Air Pollution Control District. We'll bring that up later at a different time. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Roth?
Nothing to report right now, Mr. Mayor. I've been out and finally getting back, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Upal?
First things first, Mr. Wallace, I'm happy to swap with you for that committee. They meet rarely as it is, and their next meeting date is currently open on my calendar. So I'm happy to fulfill that swap. Mr. Mayor, the shout-outs seem to be popular, so I'm going to give a quick shout-out. Today, not a birthday shout-out, but a quick shout-out to one of my cousins, my big sister, Simran Gurwal, got engaged between the last 2 weeks since we've met, so huge congratulations to her and our family, who are now even more pressed on trying to get me married, but we're going to hold off on that for a little bit. I was able to attend the resource fair that was hosted in town last Wednesday at the Crusoe Child Development Center. I do want to thank the mayor, the city manager, and a lot of the other folks that put the time in to plan that event, all the vendors that came out. I know Mr. Bates was there. By the way, I heard a great feedback on the cups that you gave out as it relates to fire. The gentleman from Congressman Gray's office was actually a big fan of that. It was a nice event, a great turnout from the community. I appreciate those folks that came out and put that on for us. And I believe there was a consulate there from the country of El Salvador. So that was pretty cool as well. So appreciate all the time that was taken to plan that event.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Samra?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Upal, you're getting close. They're gonna circle you one day, and your mom's gonna just grab you to the side, and your tayas and chachas and everybody else, and next thing you know, we'll be getting a invitation card. They can be pretty persuasive, so I can't find too many people that have won that battle, okay? So just keep your options open, okay? So with that, now for the serious stuff. Today we had a mosquito abatement meeting. I think this is the first time that I've seen in February mosquitoes. I can't remember last time we had mosquitoes in February. I was driving to Merced, I can't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday, one of those days. I was actually trying to squat a mosquito on the side of the window, and then I've had people call me from citizens, everybody saying, hey, we got mosquitoes. Just FYI to everybody, there is no mosquito season right now. We cannot, mosquito abatement cannot spray right now. They cannot do anything. So all the thing we can do is instead of praying for rain, maybe we can pray for more frost or something, you know? But that's the only thing that kills the mosquitoes, and you know. And besides that, there's Thursday, we have an MCAG meeting, and our items that we moved forward at one of our council meetings for Measure V, it's on the agenda, just so you know. I'm going to work very hard to make sure that we get our items moved forward and funded. So if anybody wants to attend, by all means, it is Thursday at 3 o'clock at the Supervisor Chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a few items to report on. I did also attend the Planning Commission meeting. Well, very informative. And last Wednesday, I'm sorry, I attended the Confia Resource Fair that took place at the Child Development Center on Pruso. And I want to say thank you to the Livingston Union School District, City of Livingston staff, and all of the over 34 different agencies that were present there with informational tables, which are services and resources that we brought into the community from all throughout the Central Valley. I also want to thank the Fresno Area Hispanic Foundation for also supporting this event and bringing it to the City of Livingston. They were able to provide dinner. They had birria. I had my first plate that was very difficult to eat because, you know, I was just up and down all over the place. But the second time, when I had a little more time, it was delicious, and there was a lot of free stuff that was ruffled up and given away. Some grants to small businesses, some grants to local families, some iPads, and a lot of other prizes. I also want to thank the fire department volunteers for being there, and the police department for being there as well, and providing information about the different services, and very educational to our community, and those water bottles were very popular. I didn't get one, just FYI. And also I want to thank some other guests, some elected officials that were there. I want to mention Mayor Matt Serrato from the City of Merced, and Mayor Mike Nelson from the City of Atwater, the General Consulate representative from El Salvador was there also, and Supervisor Jim Pacheco was there as well. And there was over 220 people in attendance. That's which was probably one of the most attended events here in the community when it's referred to resources and community events. Also, last item that I want to mention is, so you can save the date for Sunday, March 8th. The Livingston Lions is going to be having their annual omelet breakfast at the BFW Hall from 7:30 to 11:30. If anybody needs any tickets, they're only $15. And then I believe it's $8 for kids 12 and under. And this is one of the very few fundraisers that Livingston Lions puts together, and to be able to provide programs for our community. So this is March 8th, 7:30 to 11:30. We take cash, checks, Venmo, credit cards. So let me know. But other than that, that's all I have for now. Next item is council direction on future agenda items.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Yes, go ahead.
I'd like to put on either the next agenda or the agenda after first meeting in March, or, I'm sorry, April, discussion on whether we need the attorneys at the Planning Commission meeting. Thank you.
Council, anything else? Seeing none, meeting adjourned, 9:55. Good night, everyone.